Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. So this is going to be, we do this every now and then, and I got Randy joining me on here today, and we're just going to do a little mailbag episode. We get asked questions all the time based off of what we do, what the real estate market is, Indianapolis in general and stuff. And I think it's just important for us every now and then to do kind of just a mailbag or a grab bag of those questions and just kind of go through them. So I just kind of wrote down, the top 5 questions that we're generally asked, especially lately. And we're just going to kind of dig through into those questions, kind of go through them. And Randy and I will give you our take on kind of what's going on when it comes to Indianapolis investing and stuff. So I'm just going to jump into it, Randy. So our first question is our first question that we get asked all the time. And I don't know if we'll actually have an answer for this or we can dig into it a little bit, but when is the market going to shift? So you got a definite answer for that, right? You know exactly what's going to happen.
I have a crystal ball. Yep. It's a secret.
Yeah. So this is a question that, everybody asks and everybody wants to know, and nobody knows the answer to this. The, leading housing economists out there, they do not know the answer to this. And it's something that we have access to of those housing economists and stuff like that through some of the groups that we're in. And nobody has a definite answer to this. I think a lot of people are saying though, like it's not happening this year. It's not happening this year. It's going to go into next year. Whether it's going to be super, super hot like it is right now, we don't know that. But there's not going to be that huge downturn of what we see in, especially in a market when we have like Indianapolis. Some of the big swings that you see are going to hit the bigger cities first. It's going to happen in Phoenix. It's going to happen in Vegas. It's going to happen in Miami. It's going to happen in San Diego, places like that. We're going to see it happening. The little things that trigger stuff like this, we're going to see it in those markets first, and then it's going to come to like some of the secondary, tertiary markets and things like that. And those signs have not been. We're not seeing any of those signs in the bigger markets throughout the country and stuff like that. So whether it, now granted, none of us saw nobody saw COVID happening in either. So there's always something that could be coming down the line and things. But I would say for right now, when it comes to the market in general of what's going on and what's happening, it's not going to slow down anytime soon. I've said on here before, I've said on some of our other content things too, and stuff too. I think Indianapolis is honestly, I think it's going to hold. I think the values are going to hold where they are now. I think we've caught up with where Indianapolis is known as such an affordable place to invest or buy property, even as a homeowner and things like that. It's one of the most affordable places to live. That's true. And even with a hot market right now, it still holds true. But we have caught up a little bit where those values need to be. And I think it's going to hold even when the market cools off and there isn't like only 5 properties available on the market or anything like that. The value for what the properties are still going to be there here in Indianapolis. So Randy, what's your take on that? And how do you answer that when people are like, hey, when is this market going to hold off or when's it going to slow down? It's going to cool off. What's your answer for any of that stuff?
Yeah. Initially, I'm kind of on the same page as far as like, hey, I don't see anything changing for the rest of this year. I think we're still in like a full calendar year out even. So again, that's just my opinion. I've 3 years ago, I thought we were at the top of the market then, and then each year just it's still going up and up, and we're still there right now. But we're not going to see a change anytime soon. Like you said, like if we do, we're going to see changes in those bigger markets first. That's how it's always been for Indianapolis. But when I'm talking to investors and, if they're on the fence of like buying property or not sure what to do because the market's so hot, like don't let it kind of like deter from your plans. Like it's a time to kind of roll with the market and take advantage of, you still take advantage of it as an investor. It's a little different because you're looking at comps from, 6 months to a year ago. And it's just, things have so much stuff has changed since then. So, dial in your comps a little bit better and, they expect appreciation to continue to rise. So like work that into your numbers, but don't let the hot market like this, as far as like low inventory and try to find a good deal, keep you from just saying, hey, I'm just going to hold off till things slow down. Because if that's the case, then you won't be buying stuff for a while here because this market's going to stay strong, in my opinion. So shift your numbers around a little bit. Maybe the people I see still doing great in this market that were doing great 2 or 3 years ago, they loosened up their numbers a little bit. They weren't so tight on things, and it's working out because the home values are increasing. So, if someone wanted to be, 6 months ago, if they wanted to be 75% all in on a property, like they started buying at 80, because now like those property values are still going up. The numbers kind of worked out where they're all in is still kind of near where they wanted to be. So hey, we're like everyone's going through something. Like it's tough on us on the wholesaler side. It's ultra competitive on the buy side. So we're rolling with it. We're making some changes and just going with the market. And when it does shift, we'll shift our strategy as well. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
think it's one of those things that it's a tricky thing and it's a tough dance of literally like, hey, when do I need to push my numbers, but I also need to I need to hold true to my numbers too. So I can't push so far outside of there. And my recommendation for all that stuff is I like to come up with that avatar of basically like, hey, here's my avatar for what I'm looking then that's my price range. That's bedrooms, bathrooms, construction. That's all that stuff is what I'm going to come in there. And then I'm going to set parameters on there of like how far outside of that avatar am I willing to go? And when some things hit outside of there, maybe it's like $10,000 outside of my parameters. I can't do that. But if it's just 10,000, if I'm okay with going $10,000 outside of my avatar, okay, that still fits within my range where I think it can make it work. I need a property right now. I need to keep my crews happy, or hey, I need one more to buy this month for tax purpose, whatever it may be. Knowing where you fall within those parameters and how far outside of that avatar you fall into is really what is important. And you don't want to stretch that too far, but you still need to do some things to change your strategies to be able to get properties and stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
yeah. So just kind of on that same note of just, the second of everybody's like, hey, how is this, when is this market going to shift? The other question is like, just how do I get inventory? So how do I get inventory? How do I get the properties that I need? How do I look at this? How do I compete in a market like this?
Mm-hmm.
And this just, I wanted to follow up with this just based off that question we just had, because they fall hand in hand.
Yeah.
You might be waiting for this market to shift. You might be waiting for it to do something. But at the same time too, is you're like, hey, I need inventory. So how can you compete with other investors that are looking for properties that are going to stretch their parameters a little bit more than you can? So one of the things is one of those things, definitely consider what your avatar is, what your parameters are, and stick to that. But then also, how can you be aggressive within those parameters? So how can you just follow up more and more, whether it's yourself or whether it's your agent or whoever it is, following up with that. Don't wait for the wholesaler or the agent or whoever to reach back out to you. You need to be proactive against that. You need to shoot things out there. I liken this too. So one of the rules that we have on our team, one of our virtual assistants does. So some of this individual on our support team, Medley, her job is she's our transactions coordinator. But it's not just making sure everything's in line for our closings. One of her jobs is just reaching out to the title companies, reaching out to the sellers, reaching out to the buyers each and every day to say like, hey, is there anything new? What can we do? How can we help? Like, when is this going to be able to close? And I'm sure if you've dealt with us or with Medley, you may have got like, gosh, man, she just always email. Yeah, that's her job. Like, she needs to email consistently, like, to figure out what's going on. And that's the same thing you need to be doing as a buyer too, to just reaching out and saying, if you're working with Randy, what do you got? And like, what's new? Like, what's going on? Like, can I see this property? Like, what's going on? He might say like, dude, just calm down. Like, I'm not going to know anything for a week. That's fine. Like, he might say that, but at the same time too, you need to, like I said, be proactive about that and just like be looking for properties and kind of just sending stuff out there. I will say too, is one of the things I would really look at is, because this market is so hot, like prices, like sellers and agents and everybody is pushing their price. Wholesalers, we're all pushing our prices as much as possible, not to, get, not to make that extra $1,000 or $5,000 and whatever it is. We're pushing our numbers because that's where the numbers are. That's where the numbers lie. So we're not trying to like, oh, we're going to make, $20,000 in every deal. No, we're still just trying to make like $10,000. That's what we try to do. Like somewhere in between 10 and 12, or somewhere in between 7 and 12. That's really where we need to be on our deals. And that's what we're still going to do, but our numbers have been pushed. So in saying that, what I'm really getting at is everybody's pushing their numbers. So in that case, when you look at even properties that are on the market, properties are sitting on the market a little bit longer than when you dig into the numbers, you'll kind of see what's happening. So the number of days on the market it's under 30 days right now, which is crazy. That's insane to see that on the market. So some properties are going super, super fast, but also there are properties that are just sitting there a little bit longer. So if you looked at the beginning of May, there were like 5 properties that expired at the beginning of May. And I'm talking about like kind of northeast area, like certain areas that I forget where I set up my parameters when I looked at this earlier today, but like Fishers, Castleton, kind of east side is where I set my parameters up today when I was looking at this. in those neighborhoods, there were 5 properties that their listings expired at the beginning of May. When I looked at it again today, same parameters in there were 60 that expired today. So what I'm saying here is that there are a lot of properties that are flying off the shelves and going super quick, but there's also properties that are kind of sitting there, meaning that they were priced wrong. There might be an issue with them. Something's going on with them. Those are the ones that I think are, that's where the advantage or the kind of the opportunity is if you're looking for properties. Those are the ones like don't be afraid to like, oh, this has been on the market for 100 days. Something's probably completely wrong with it. No, it's probably just priced wrong and it's just been sitting there. Like make an offer on it, check it out.
Yeah.
I think that's where the opportunity is if you're looking for properties and don't want to compete against, oh, I don't want to do highest and best within 2 days. Like it's so annoying. I'm putting offers in over 30 and I'm still not getting them. Yeah. Look for what's been on the market for 30 plus days. And that might be where the opportunity is. So Randy, sorry, I just went on a big old tangent there and been talking for a while, but why don't you chime in on this and just kind of like, what are your recommendations for people when they are competing in a hot market like this?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fine. You covered a lot of great points there. And just to kind of piggyback on that last point you made, like, yeah, those properties, like recently, like you said, there was like 6 properties that expired in May. And then now in June, there was 60. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is 60 sellers right there that in this market, if it's expiring, it's the price, or there's something completely wrong with that property. But that gives any investor an opportunity to come in, and because right now those people I don't think they're getting many calls from investors. Those people are getting calls from real estate agents saying, hey, like give me a chance to sell your house. I bet I can get you X price. Where, they'd probably like a call from an actual buyer saying, hey, like, I saw your your property came off the market. I'm a cash buyer. I'd be willing to give you this. Would you consider that? And just make that opening and see how that conversation goes. But there's 60 sellers right there. Someone could skip, trace, and call, and possibly out of the 60, you get one deal, right?
Yeah.
So, that's a great way to always look at inventory and try to find deals somewhere. I would also, I would just try to create a little bit of competition within my team. So if I wasn't local, I would have a couple real estate agents working for me. I know everyone likes to stay loyal to one, and that's awesome. But
and Glory is awesome for that. No.
Glory Gear is awesome for that. But no, I mean, just have a couple agents working for you. Maybe someone's working different sides of the city, different areas, different types of properties. Someone's maybe only looking for single family, while you have another agent trying to look for the multifamily for you. But kind of spread out, so you're kind of covered in all areas, but create competition so people know, like, hey, like, I'm open to work with this agent, but I also have this agent looking for these properties for me as well. Whoever finds me the deal, I'll go ahead and work with them, and then just kind of split it up in the future. But just create competition like that, and like you said, always staying in touch with your deal sources. So people are, like you mentioned, people are always calling me saying, hey, like on a weekly basis, hey, what do you have for me this week? What do you have for me this week? A lot of the weeks I don't have anything, but sometimes when I do, when it comes across, like, just because they keep calling me, like, they're in my head at all times. So, I'll let them be aware of a property that we may have available in a week or so. And then, I'll just keep them in the loop of when it becomes available. So yeah, just stay in touch with deal sources, creating competition within your team, and just be a little bit more risk taking, I think. Smart, but get that deal. If you're only like a few $1,000s off, just go ahead and get it. It's probably going to be okay.
Yeah, I would say that's a big change from where it was, 2-3 years ago, where I might hold out for an extra $2,000 or something like that. Like right now, I'm not going to do that. If we're within a couple $1,000s, I'm going to do it. Maybe I won't make as big as profit, or my numbers won't fit up exactly where I need them to be, but it's getting stuff in it's getting that inventory in, and kind of taking a little bit of risk on that, knowing that, hey, it's probably going to work out because the market is, definitely favorable. The market's our best friend right now. If you're in real estate in general, it's your best friend, and we're doing pretty well with it, and it's helping us out. So let's take advantage of it while we can.
Yeah, there was a deal, I think 6 months ago. One of our guys was looking at buying. We couldn't do it at the seller's price because we were like 10,000 off, I think. And then I think 2 weeks ago we reanalyzed because the guy didn't sell. He still needed that price. The market boomed in that little pocket, and I was like, oh, we could do that price now. Yeah. So it's crazy how that works. But just to put that in perspective, okay, well, if you buy something now, like, give it a couple months, and that could be a great deal for you because that property value changed.
Yeah. Definitely. So one of the next big questions that we always get asked, and it's pretty consistent. We'll actually, this will be a big month for this question and stuff. But what's going on with evictions? Everybody wants to know what's going on with evictions. The moratorium is supposed to be up at the end of June. We'll see what really happens. We'll see what's going on with it. As far as I can say, with what is going on with evictions here in Indianapolis is it kind of depends on where you are and what judge you're dealing with
Hmm.
when it comes to evictions and stuff like that. So kind of one of those things you need to consider. You need to know what's going on. So Warren Township is pretty tough to kind of get some evictions going on in and stuff like that. The judge isn't even hearing any evictions, or you're not really even allowed to file evictions. Some other places, are okay with it. They'll hear the court hearing, or they'll do the hearings, and they'll file the evictions and stuff like that. So it kind of just depends on where you are and knowing what's going on a little bit. When it comes down to it, essentially, remember that if somebody is not paying, you can't file eviction on them for not paying. That's not what it's for. If their lease is expired, if they're doing something else to break the lease, those are the types of things that you can file eviction for. Whether they can get heard, whether they'll go through, or not, they'll get granted. That's kind of up to the judge to decide, and kind of how the court, or how the township hears it and stuff. But that's one of the things you need to pay attention to and need to understand. I will also say too is, as our question right before this is, how do you get inventory? That's one of the ways you can consider getting inventory. If you're willing to pick up a property and wait a couple months to see what happens. Hey, I'll pick up a property, and I'm knowing that, hey, I might have to file eviction on this person in 2 months, or hey, I'm going to pick up this property and I'll work with the tenant to figure out what's going on, or I'll redo the lease, or hey, I'll give them cash for keys. Maybe you factor that into your price of like, hey, I can pay $65,000 for this price, knowing that, hey, maybe I have to give the tenant $3,000 to move out, and really that price to you is $68,000. Whatever that may be. I think it's a really good way to pick up, inventory. If you are willing to wait out things and do a little bit of problem solving between yourself, or your property manager, or, you're any of your boots on the ground or anything like that. So, Randy, when you're talking to investors, it's about kind of some of the headaches they're having and some of the issues they're having with, their tenants and their evictions and stuff like that. What's the word on the street of just kind of how things are coming out now, and what buyers are looking for when it comes to that type of inventory?
Yeah, well, I think, if anyone's going through an eviction issue or for the past few months, it's always a headache, right? Even if there was no moratorium going on, an eviction always stinks.
Yeah.
But the moratorium throws a wrench in there already. So, some people are having luck and some people aren't. But I think that's just because of the process they're taking and the documentation. Maybe they don't have all the documentation in place, or maybe they're working with a subpar lawyer, who knows. But I think the people that are having success are like, they have all the documentation in place, they're going to the hearings. Some of these people don't even show up to the hearings, so that works in your favor. So make sure you always have someone going to the hearings for you. And that'd set you up for success. But if anyone out there is trying to source their own deals and they're coming across people that are trying to sell properties that need an eviction, that, I mean, you have to put that in your favor and kind of paint the picture to that seller of like what the headache is going through the eviction right now, to get an even better price. And that's what we do when we're talking to sellers that have problem tenants. And they're like, well, I need this price and I'll just go ahead and evict them. I'm like, well, you don't really. Let me tell you how this process is going to go when you go through an eviction nowadays. And then, just paint a picture of what it looks like. And it's nothing that anyone wants to do after hearing that. So like, okay, well, maybe we can do this price and I can just let you take care of that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So no, really good points there, man. I think it's a big thing, and it's like you said too. Like, nobody wants to go through an eviction. It's not a fun process, and it's always tough and stuff. But sometimes things that, there's systems in place for what has to happen in those situations. And luckily sometimes they work out, and sometimes they can be maybe resolved even outside of the court system and things, so people don't have to get things on the record. So just be careful with that, and make sure you're checking with your lawyer, make sure you're checking with your property manager on when things are going around or going about when it comes to an eviction. Just make sure you're doing things in the right way. So kind of on that note, our next question I kind of wrote down that we kind of get asked all the time, and it's consistent of, I think, every time I meet with a new investor and stuff, is like, hey, who do you recommend for property management, or how do I find a property manager? And I will tell you, like, you can't, like, who works for me for property management might not be the same person for Randy. It's not going to be the same person for, Joe Smith. It's not going to be the same person for, Rebecca, Jones, or whoever it may be. Everybody's property manager needs to be different. It needs to fit their kind of mold of what they're looking for and what they want to be
Yeah.
able to do. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, hey, you should work with this person or this person or this person. You definitely want to reach out to me. I can, let you know, hey, my experience with this, or here's who, if this is what you're looking to do, like, I'd maybe talk to this person and things. Realistically, what it comes down to is you need to talk to different property managers, see kind of what they can do, what they can do for you. And then also just like, who fits with you, who fits with your core
Yeah.
values, who fits with what you want to do. I think one of the biggest things that is tough, and property management is something I never want to get into. It's not, I would never build a business off of it. It sounds terrible to me. We deal with about, we manage about, 5 to 8 properties at a time in house, as we're selling them and things. And those are the things that stress
That's
me
good
out. Those are things
enough.
that, yeah, they keep me awake at night. And our team does pretty well with those and things. But, really what it comes down to is you have to understand that the property manager is not just there for the owner of the property. They are there for the owner of the property and the tenant. They're looking out for the rights of both people, want to make it the best situation for both people. So you can't just say, hey, well, I need to do this, or I want to do this. It can't fall in between that. It has to be, they're there for you and for the tenant. And I think it's a big piece of what people forget sometimes. Um, and you have some responsibilities as the owner. The property management has some responsibilities as a property manager, and the tenant has some responsibilities as a tenant. And making sure that everybody is on the same page. And like I said, coming back to like, make sure that who you're working with as a property manager fits how you want to operate. So we've had tons of issues. We worked with multiple property managers in the past. Our investors have worked with property managers in the past. Sometimes, I'll hear one conversation like, this person there, I can't work with them. They handle it this way. I'll talk to somebody the very next day that is perfect for them. They're like, oh man, I love the way they do this. I don't have to worry about this. I can be hands off. Or, oh man, they have a meeting with me once a week. We get on the same page and stuff like that. So it's whatever fits your style. I think is really, really important. So Randy, when you're talking to investors and they're kind of, especially the newer investors, and they're like, hey, who do you reckon, who should I get to property management? Is it, I just always say like, hey, just talk to as many people as you can, see who fits with you.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, if I have 2 properties, I'm probably going to put 2 with different property managers to see which one I like the best. Or if I have 5, I'm going to split them up to see what works. Now I'm not going to take 5 properties and put them with 5 different property managers. That seems like a headache to me. But if
Right.
you're looking for one, split test it. Split
Yeah.
test who you like, who you work with. How do you like their systems? How do you like their operations? Like that kind of thing. I think is important too, is one of the things when I'm working with property managers, I'm going to put out there like, hey, include me on your email chain that goes out to tenants, or your text messages go out to tenants. I want to be on those because I want to know what tone you have. I want to know what you're saying. I want to know how you're coming across. I want to be involved in that. I kind of want to know what's going on. I want to be hands off, but I still want to be in the know. And
Yeah.
that's important for me. So Randy, how about you? What's your take on all that stuff, man?
Yeah. I mean, whenever I have that conversation, I'll email over, 3 property managers that if I had, rentals, I would definitely trust either of them, to handle my business. But at the end of the day, still making it known, like, hey, if these 3, like, you may or may not work for you, but, talk to each of them. They're all going to offer different, services. They're going to work. Some of them may work different areas too.
Yeah.
So, you got to ask your property manager if they're willing to manage properties in certain areas, because some will and some won't. Some will cover the entire city in 30 minutes outside of Indianapolis, and some will only stay on the north side or the south side. So little things like that are going to kind of help you in your decision. Then, like you said, I would work with more than one. Some of them are going to offer more in-depth services for you and kind of give you a more inside scoop of what's going on with the properties. Some will just be very relaxed, right? And just say, hey, here's your rent. Everything's good. And some people are okay with that. Some are like, no, I need you to open the books and tell me exactly like every penny, like what's happening. So it just depends on the investor's style, what they expect. And then also that management style and how they work, just to see if it matches up with you.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point of just, especially too, of like with the areas of making sure that your property manager can work in certain areas and things. I'm always weary of the person when you talk to them and says like, this is whether it's a contractor or property manager or just anybody. When somebody's like, oh, we do it all. We do it all. Like, what do you mean by that? Give me some example. Like, give me your like, give me from this range to this range. What do you really mean by do it all and stuff like that? So just a little something to be weary of or just be aware of. Randy, we're going to wrap up. We're about at our half-hour limit right now, so we're going to wrap up this episode. Any other like big question or anything that somebody's been asking you over the last couple of weeks that stands out to you that you want to address today?
No, I don't think so. I think the questions that we answered today is pretty much like that's like the top 4 or 5 questions I hear on every like first call with a new investor. But
Yeah.
I will say like no question's a bad question. So even if people are like, I don't want to ask them about this, like go ahead and ask me, just because that like you have to, like you have to keep asking questions to kind of know what's going on. And I'm happy to answer, whatever I can, right?
Yeah.
If it's a question I can handle, I will. If not, I'll find out how to get the answer for you.
Yeah, I do think that's really important. It comes back to maybe it's the teacher in me of like, hey, no, no questions are bad questions and things like that. There's a reason that you're wondering that. And if it's something that seems, just second nature to somebody else and it's like, oh yeah, we talked about that, or like seems like that's okay. If it's something that you don't know and that is sticking in your head, ask that question, to who's ever sourcing your deals, your property manager, your lawyer, or anything like that. So definitely reach out and ask those questions. Hopefully we can be of value to you. If you have anything for us, we would love to help you out in any way. You can reach out to us at brian@simplewholesaling.com or randy@simplewholesaling.com. Be more than happy to help you out with whatever you need when it comes to Indy real estate investing. And with that, this is a wrap for this episode of the Indy Investor Pod, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.